Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in. If you're new here, consider subscribing. It really helps keep these stories coming. And while you're here, let me know in the comments where you're listening from. Now sit back, relax, and let's get into the story. I remember the night by the sound first. It was just after 10 in the evening, a warm, humid night along the Houston Ship Channel, that heavy Gulf air that sticks to your clothes, even when the sun is long gone. I was in the safety office at our refinery near Deer Park, finishing a report on confined space entries, when the deep rumble of the crude unit shifted in a way I did not like. You work around these plants long enough, you learn the normal sounds: pumps, compressors, steam vents, the intermittent roar of the flare. This was different, a kind of uneven pulse, like something was struggling. My name is Alex Rivera. I am 32 years old, an industrial safety technician and former volunteer firefighter. My job is to keep people from doing the kinds of things that end up on those accident investigation reports we all read in training and swear will never happen here. Gas detectors, emergency drills, hot work permits, incident reports. None of that prepared me for what happened that night. We were in turnaround on several units, including one of the fluid catalytic crackers, so the place was already a maze of scaffolding and portable lights. There were contractor crews everywhere: welders, fitters, scaffold builders, insulators. I had just finished checking a set of 4 gas detectors for a vessel entry and was typing notes into the computer when my radio crackled. "Safety, this is Morgan at Cat Cracker B. Got a contractor down near the regenerator staircase. Possible heat stress. Need medical." Morgan Patel, 29, one of our best process operators. She practically lived on those catwalks. If she sounded worried, it was not nothing. I grabbed my helmet, safety glasses, and radio, slung my atmosphere detector over my shoulder, and headed out. The corridor from the safety office led past the control building, out through a security turnstile, and into the jungle of steel that was the refinery. Even at night, the place glowed. Sodium vapor lights painted everything a yellowish color. Steam plumes drifted between towers. A few flare stacks burned steady in the distance, ghostly orange against the low clouds. The air smelled like it always did: sulfur, oil, that sharp edge of chemicals that never quite leaves your nose. I jogged along the grated walkway toward the catalytic cracking unit. The unit rose ahead of me like a small city of its own: fractionator tower, regenerator, cyclones, a forest of pipes and valves. Workers moved like ants on the scaffolding, their headlamps bobbing. I saw Morgan before she saw me, standing near the bottom of the regenerator staircase, hard hat pushed back, radio clenched in her hand. 2 other contractors hovered over someone on the ground. "What happened?" I called as I approached. She turned. Her face was pale in the work lights. "He just dropped, Alex. Said he felt hot and dizzy, then went down. We pulled him out of the work area, but he's not right." I knelt beside him. He was a middle-aged guy in a contractor flame-resistant coverall, name patch reading R. Hayes. His skin was flushed and damp, eyes half open but unfocused. I felt for a pulse at his neck, fast and pounding. "Hayes, can you hear me?" I asked, tapping his shoulder. His gaze slid past me like I was not there. His lips moved, but no sound came out at first. Then he whispered something too low to catch. "Any exposure?" I asked the other contractors. "He get into any product? Any vapors?" "Monitored the area. All clear," one said, nervous. "We checked LEL and oxygen. It was fine. He just started acting weird, like he was confused. Then he went down." I pulled my portable gas detector from my chest, powered it on, and watched it cycle through its self-test. Oxygen 20.9%. Lower explosive limit 0. Hydrogen sulfide 0 parts per million. Carbon monoxide 0. Nothing obvious. "Could be heat, could be something else," I said. "We need medical." I pressed the button on my radio. "Control, this is Alex in the field. We have a medical emergency at Cat Cracker B, regenerator stair base. 1 contractor down, conscious but non-responsive. Requesting medic response and cart." The controller acknowledged. I glanced at Morgan. He say anything before he dropped? She swallowed. He said his head felt like it was pounding and that his skin hurt. Then he stared at me and asked if I could hear the buzzing. There was no buzzing, Alex. The contractor on the other side shifted nervously. He started breathing weird too, like he could not catch his breath. I checked his breathing. Fast, shallow. His eyes snapped to mine suddenly, and for a second they were clear. "Help," he whispered, and his fingers clawed weakly at my sleeve. "We've got you," I said. "Stay still, medics are on the way." Then his body tensed. Every muscle in his arms and shoulders went rigid, his back arched, and his jaw clenched. I had seen seizures before, but this was not quite that. It looked like every nerve in his body fired at once. "Get back," I said, pulling my hands away. "Give him space." He suddenly relaxed, limp on the concrete. His chest barely moved. Then he sucked in a deep, rattling breath, and his eyes opened again. This time, they looked wrong. Too wide, pupils blown. "Hayes," Morgan said softly. "Can you hear us?" He stared straight up, not blinking, lips drawn back. Then he moved, fast, faster than I expected. His arm shot out and grabbed my forearm with a grip that felt like a vice. I jerked back on instinct, but he held on. His mouth opened in a wet, choking gasp, and he tried to yank me closer. "Hey!" I shouted, trying to twist free. "Let go!" Morgan grabbed his wrist, trying to pry his fingers off me. The man let out a sound then, something between a growl and a cough, and snapped his head toward her. "Back off!" I yelled. "He's combative!" I finally tore my arm free and scrambled backward. Hayes rolled toward Morgan, his hands clawing at her boots. She stumbled, almost fell. The other contractors backed away, wide-eyed. "Control, this is Alex," I said into my radio, trying to keep my voice even. "Patient is now combative. We need security as well as medical. Repeat, combative." Hayes pushed himself up on his hands, legs jerking as if he was a puppet on strings. His movements were jerky, uncoordinated but strong. He lurched toward Morgan, hands outstretched. She dodged sideways. "Sir, you need to stay down," she said, voice shaking. "You're not well." He did not respond. He lunged again, this time at one of the other contractors, who scrambled backward and tripped over a hose. The man hit the ground hard. "Everyone back up," I said, spreading my arms, trying to put myself between Hayes and the others. "Give him room." Hayes swung wildly at me. I stepped back, heart hammering. He moved like someone in a panic, but there was something off in his eyes. No recognition, just raw, unfocused drive. The medic cart's engine noise reached us before we saw it. It rolled into the unit, lights flashing. 2 medics jumped out, both wearing company coveralls and reflective vests. "What have we got?" one called. "Heat stress turned combative," I said, not taking my eyes off Hayes. "We need restraints." As they approached, Hayes spun toward them. One medic, Javier, held up his hands. "Sir, we're here to help you, but you need to sit down, all right?" Hayes answered by lunging at him. Javier sidestepped, but Hayes caught his vest and yanked. They went down in a tangle. The second medic tried to grab Hayes' arms. I grabbed Javier's shoulder and helped him roll away. Hayes flailed, making a guttural sound that did not sound like anything I had heard a sick person make. "Get him to the ground," Javier panted. "We need to restrain him before he hurts someone or himself." It took 4 of us to pin him. Even then, he fought with an intensity that did not match his size. We managed to get soft restraints on his wrists, securing his arms to the rails on the side of the medic cart. As soon as he was tied down, his head rolled to the side. His eyes stared at nothing again. His chest rose and fell rapidly. "What is wrong with him?" Morgan whispered. "I do not know," I said. "But if this is some kind of exposure, we need to know where he was working." Before we could get more answers, my radio crackled again. This time, it was the control room operator. "Attention all units. Attention all units. Hydrotreater 3 is showing pressure spikes on multiple vessels. Possible valve failures. All operations and maintenance personnel respond per emergency procedures. Safety and security respond as well. I looked at Morgan. She looked back at me, then at Hayes, strapped to the cart and still straining against his restraints. "This night just got worse," I said. We helped the medics load Hayes fully onto the cart. Javier climbed in back with him. The driver put it in gear. "We'll take him to the medical room by the control building," Javier shouted. "We'll get him stabilized." "Radio, if anything changes," I said. The cart rolled off, weaving through the maze of pipes and equipment. I watched it go, a feeling I could not quite name settling in my stomach. "Hydrotreater 3, I said to Morgan. "You good here if I leave?" She nodded. "I'll get these guys back to their break area and make sure we have a report ready. Go. If that hydrotreater goes sideways, we've got bigger problems than one sick contractor." I jogged back toward the main process area, the refinery's pulse growing louder with every step. The hydrotreater unit was closer to the center of the plant, near a series of massive horizontal vessels and heat exchangers. As I approached, the night seemed to grow brighter from the floodlights, but the mood felt darker. Operations techs clustered around the base of one of the towers. The unit's hum sounded uneven. My gas detector ticked on my chest, still reading clean air, but my instincts screamed that something was wrong. I checked in with the shift supervisor, a middle-aged man named Earl, who had been at the plant longer than I had been alive. "We've got control valve oscillations and an upstream pressure spike," he said. "The control room is trying to stabilize, but something is not right with the sensors. And to top it off, we have multiple reports of contractors in this area getting sick." "Sick how?" I asked. He frowned. "Dizzy, nausea, confusion. Couple of them went to the medical room already. I thought maybe they were cutting corners on their hydration, but now I am not so sure." My radio crackled again. This time, it was Gwen. "Alex, this is Gwen at security. I need your location." "I'm at Hydrotreater 3 with Earl," I replied. "You need to get to the control building," she said. "Now. We've got a situation with your contractor from earlier." My stomach sank. "What kind of situation?" "The bad kind," she said. "He attacked one of the medics. We had to lock them in the medical room, and now I have 3 more people from different units acting like him. Aggressive, non-responsive. We're initiating an internal shelter in place. I need your safety assessment, and I need it fast." "I'm on my way," I said. I looked at Earl. "Security is locking the place down," I told him. "I need to get to the control building to coordinate. Keep your people at safe distances. If you suspect any kind of leak, pull them out and call it. Do not assume anything is fine, because the screens look okay." He nodded. "Go. We'll keep the unit stable as best we can." I turned and ran, my boots clanging on the grating. The refinery stretched around me like a steel forest. Towers, vessels, exchangers, racks of pipes layered 5 and 6 levels deep. Steam hissed from overhead, drifting through the glare of the floodlights. The PA system crackled to life as I ran. "Attention all personnel," the automated voice said. "This facility is initiating internal shelter in place. All workers and contractors are to move to the nearest designated shelter area. Remain inside until further notice. This is not a drill." Hearing those words in that flat, recorded voice made everything feel more real. Shelter in place at a refinery usually meant a major toxic release outside the plant, or a storm scenario. It did not mean multiple people inside our fence line had suddenly turned into violent, unresponsive attackers. That was something else entirely. As I neared the control building, I saw Gwen standing at the entrance with 2 security officers. Gwen Fields, mid-30s, former sheriff's deputy, now head of security for the plant. She wore a ballistic vest over her plain clothes and carried a duty pistol on her belt. Her hair was pulled back tight, and her eyes scanned everything. "Inside," she said as I approached. "We've locked down the perimeter gates and ordered everyone into their designated shelters. I have officers doing sweeps to make sure crews are off the units where they can be." "What about the people in the field?" I asked, panting slightly. You are not going to be able to round everyone up. We have scaffold crews, maintenance, inspection. We're doing what we can, she said. But we've got another problem. Come on. Inside, the control building was a nerve center of fluorescent lights, server racks, and humming electronics. At its core sat the main distributed control system center, a large room with curved console desk areas, each lined with computer monitors showing process diagrams and live data. Operators sat at some of the stations, headsets on, eyes locked on the screens. The atmosphere was tense. Warnings blinked on several monitors. Pressure alarms, level alarms, temperature limits exceeded. A display at one station showed the hydrotreater's pressure graphic, spikes up and down like a bad heartbeat. Gwen led me past the control room door to the smaller medical office down the hall. The door was closed, a shade drawn over the small window. One of her officers stood guard, hand resting near his holstered pistol. "Is he still in there?" Gwen asked. "Yes, ma'am," the guard said. "Him and 2 medics and a contractor who came in after. We can hear them moving around, but nobody is answering when we speak to them." "What happened?" I asked. "We brought your guy in," Gwen said. "At first he was just agitated, fighting the restraints. Then he calmed down, or so the medics said. They unstrapped one arm to check his IV line, and he went for them. Bit one, right on the forearm through his sleeve. Other medic tried to pull him off and got slammed into the wall. They hit the panic button. We got here, but by then your guy was different. Different how? I asked. Eyes wild, moving like he felt no pain, no hesitation, she said. We tried verbal commands, nothing. He turned on us, and we had to back out and lock the door. We do not have enough officers to play wrestling games in close quarters with someone that strong and that unpredictable. While we were dealing with that, 2 more people from other units showed up in the hallway, acting the same way. Confused at first, then aggressive. We got them into the medical room too, but it is a mess in there. Something cold slid down my spine. Whatever this is, it is spreading, I said. If it is an airborne chemical, we should be seeing it on our monitors, but we are not. If it is some kind of exposure through water or contact, we need to isolate people now. That is why I locked the plant down, she said. But there's more. We have reports from the field of people attacking co-workers in the units. I just got a call from the tank farm. One of the night techs said a contractor tried to pull him off a tank stairway. No warning, just grabbed him and tried to drag him down. An operator jogged down the hall toward us, his face drawn. Gwen, Alex, we have a serious problem, he said. The hydrotreater is still climbing. We have instruments glitching out. We are getting valve mismatches. And now the flare is starting to pick up more than it should. If we do not stabilize soon, the automatic systems are going to start depressurizing into the flare and maybe into the atmosphere. Will it stay within permitted limits? I asked. He shook his head. Not like this. We are already pushing thresholds. If the safety systems go full emergency mode, we are talking potential large releases, neighbors, other plants, the whole ship channel. And I'm not even talking about ignition risk if something goes wrong with the flare stack. So we have an unknown illness turning workers aggressive, and a plant drifting toward a major environmental event, I said. Great. Gwen folded her arms. What do you need from me? She asked. I need to be in that control room, I said. I need to see what the process data looks like, where we have people, and what systems are at risk. We also need to treat those aggressive people in the medical room like hazardous material sources until we know otherwise. That means nobody goes in without full protection. We do not have full hazmat suits for everyone, she said. We have a few. Most of our gear is for short-term chemical exposure, not for dealing with whatever this is. We use what we have, I said. Face shields, gloves, disposable suits where we can, and we minimize contact. If someone starts showing symptoms, we isolate them. She nodded. All right, but one more thing. If this gets worse, if people start getting hurt badly, I want you to understand something. I will not allow gunfire inside most parts of this refinery. A stray round could hit a line, a valve, a tank. I am not going to blow this plant up because some sick guy rushes a guard. I agree, I said. Guns should be last resort. Blunt force, restraints, locks, barriers, first choice. Good, she said. Let us hope it does not come to any of it. We headed back to the control room. Inside, the operators moved around their consoles with focused urgency. The wall of screens in front showed the status of the major units. Red and yellow alarms flashed. Audible buzzers sounded again and again. The shift lead, a woman named Carla, looked up as we entered. Alex, I'm glad you're here, she said. We've got half the plant screaming at us and field crews scattered. The hydrotreater is only the worst of it. We have one of the sulfur units showing weird readings too, and the hydrogen plant is seeing flow shifts we cannot explain. Where are most of our personnel right now? I asked. We have maybe half in their shelter locations, she said. Some are still in the field, either trying to secure equipment or because they did not get the message. And some are just not responding on the radio at all. On one screen, a camera feed from a unit walkway showed a man staggering down the grating, arms out, as alarms flashed in the background. I stepped closer. Can you zoom that camera? I asked. She did. The resolution was not great, but I recognized the behavior instantly. The man's clothes were torn, his hard hat hung by its chin strap. His head snapped from side to side as he stumbled, like he was trying to locate something by sound alone. We watched as another worker came into frame, backing away, hands raised. The staggering man suddenly lunged at him with surprising speed. The camera feed jerked as if the camera itself vibrated from something, then cut to another view, probably because of automatic cycling. Can you pull up another angle? I asked. We do not have clear lines everywhere, she said. Too much steel in the way, but I can pull up the heat exchanger yard cameras. She tapped keys. A different feed appeared, showing a dense cluster of piping and exchangers. In the middle of the frame, an open walkway with emergency lights. A worker sprinted across, tripping and scrambling to his feet. Behind him, 3 figures moved at a fast, uneven pace, following. Jesus, Gwen muttered behind me. They are hunting him. I forced my voice to stay level. We need to figure out if this is just inside our fence line, or if the city has any idea, I said. Carla, have you tried calling 911 again? We got through once about 40 minutes ago, she said. They said emergency services are overloaded with reports of violent behavior all over the Houston area. They told us police and medical response were delayed and to use our internal emergency procedures. Then the line cut. So it is not just us, I said. There is something larger happening. As if on cue, the PA system crackled again, but this time it was not the automated voice. It was one of our own radio channels patched in. This is Ray in maintenance, a voice said. We just lost power from the substation on the east side. We took a hit or a fault. I'm switching to backup, but lights are going down in the heat exchanger yard and some of the catwalks. Of course, I said quietly. Because this needed to be darker. Carla's screens flickered as the plant power system reconfigured. Some units switched to essential loads only. She cursed under her breath. I'm routing critical systems to our diesel generators, she said. We can keep the control systems, the flare, and some key pumps alive for a while. But if the backup line switches trip, we're in real trouble. How long do we have on the backup diesel? I asked. She consulted a screen. Assuming no mechanical issues and decent fuel, a few hours, maybe less if we have to power more equipment to keep units from overheating. I looked at Gwen. We need a full map of where the infected or aggressive people have been reported, I said. And we need to know where our safest evacuation routes are if we have to abandon this building. I do not want to run blind into a unit that is about to overpressurize or into a group of attackers we did not expect. I have officers marking positions as they report in, she said. But communication is getting spotty. Too many people talking at once. I will consolidate and get you a rough layout. An alarm on the main board shrieked louder than the others. Carla's head snapped around. Hydrotreater pressure is approaching our automatic relief set points, she said. We're going to start dumping to the flare, whether we like it or not, if we do not lower feed. Can you cut feed flow remotely? I asked. Field valves need to be verified, she said. We have partial remote, but we rely on manual checks, and I do not trust all these sensor readings right now with everything glitching. So we need someone out there, I said. In the worst area of the plant, while an unknown infection is turning people into attackers. Basically, she said. Gwen looked at me. You are thinking about going out there, are you not? She asked. I am thinking we all die if that unit vents uncontrolled into the flare and possibly the atmosphere, I said. I know where those valves are. Morgan knows them better. If we can reach her, we have a shot. She shook her head. Alex, you are safety, not operations. Safety means understanding the risk and dealing with it, I said. If we let the automated systems take over with half the plant out of position, we might be causing more harm to the community than whatever is happening in here. We built this plant to contain hazard. If we lose that containment, we have a larger disaster. She held my gaze for a long moment. Finally, she nodded once. Fine, but you are not going alone, and you go with protection. I turned to Carla. Get me Morgan on the radio, I said. Carla keyed a handheld mic. Morgan, this is Control. Respond. Static answered at first. Then her voice came through, strained. This is Morgan, she said. I'm near the heat exchanger yard between Hydrotreater 3 and the hydrogen plant. I've got a small group with me in a shelter room, but we have people banging on the door who do not sound right. Morgan, this is Alex, I said. We need to manually verify shutdown valves on Hydrotreater 3 to avoid automatic depressurization. Can you guide us through the quickest safe path to those valves from the control building if we meet you on the way? She hesitated. Safe is relative right now, she said. But yes, I know a route that bypasses most of the exposed walkways. The problem is getting there. The corridor outside our shelter has at least 3 of them. They keep hitting the door like they can smell us. Hold your position, I said. We will come to you. Keep talking us in as we move. Gwen was already moving toward the equipment room. We have respirators, disposable coveralls, gloves, face shields, she said. Not full chemical suits, but better than nothing. We also need self-contained breathing apparatus if we're going near that hydrotreater, I said. If we have benzene leaks or hydrogen sulfide, we do not want to be breathing it. We have SCBA sets in the emergency response locker, she said. I will have my officers put them on and escort you. I need one of maintenance too, I said. Ray knows the electrical and power side better than anyone. If we run into a dying pump or breaker, I'm just guessing. Where is he? As if summoned, Ray's voice came over the plant radio. This is Ray, in the electrical building, he said. We've got partial backup power engaged, but we have some fried breakers from whatever hit the substation. I need to know if you want me to prioritize control systems or certain pumps. Ray, this is Alex in control, I said. We're forming a team to move through the heat exchanger yard to Hydrotreater 3 to manually confirm shutdown valves. We want you on that team. Can you get to the emergency response locker by the west stair of the control building? I can, if I duck some very unpleasant people in the hallway, he said. But yeah, give me 5. Gwen checked her watch. You have 3, she muttered. I moved with her to the equipment room. We opened the steel cabinet where our emergency gear was stored and hauled out SCBA packs, harnesses, masks, disposable suits, and chemical-resistant gloves. 2 of her officers joined us, already wearing their security vests. They looked nervous, but determined. I pulled the straps of the SCBA over my shoulders with practiced motions. Years as a volunteer firefighter came back quickly. Waist belt, chest strap, mask seal check. The weight of the air cylinder on my back felt strangely comforting. It was something I understood in a night that made less and less sense. Ray appeared a minute later, tall and broad-shouldered, sweat streaking his face. He grabbed a pack and started donning it without being told. "You see what is going on out there?" he asked through gritted teeth. "Some of it," I said. "Enough to know we cannot stay hiding in here and hope it passes." He nodded. "Then let's move." We stepped through the airlock doors and out into the plant again. The night seemed darker now, with parts of the infrastructure in shadow from the power issues. The flare in the distance burned brighter, taller. Its roar was a constant low thunder. Through the mask, my breathing sounded loud in my ears. I keyed my radio. "Morgan, this is Alex," I said. "Team is leaving the control building. We have 4 people in SCBA and limited weapons. Gwen's officers have batons and restraints. We are avoiding firearms. Guide us." "Copy," she said. "Take the main corridor south, then hang left at the nitrogen header. Avoid the open catwalk above the exchanger bay if you can. There were at least 2 of them wandering there when I last checked." We moved down the corridor, our boots loud on the concrete. Steam curled from overhead vents. Somewhere in the distance, a metal clang echoed, something falling or being struck repeatedly. The normal background noise of the plant now sounded like a living thing. As we neared the nitrogen header, I saw the first infected clearly under the lights. He stood in the middle of the walkway, swaying. His coveralls were stained, one sleeve torn. His hands hung at his sides, fingers curled. His head was tilted slightly, as if listening to something. When he heard our footsteps, his head snapped toward us. His eyes were wrong, wide open, pupils dilated, white streaked with red. His mouth hung slightly open, lips dry. There was nothing in his gaze that said recognition, not fear, not pain, just a blank, intense focus. "Sir, stop right there," Gwen called, her voice firm. "You are not well. Stand down." He did not respond in any way that made sense. Instead, he started walking toward us, then broke into a run. "Batons!" she snapped. Her officers stepped forward, batons raised. The man charged, arms out. One officer swung at his forearm, connecting with a solid thud. The man's arm bent at a bad angle, but he did not scream, did not slow. The other officer slammed his baton down on the man's knee, and his leg buckled. He went down hard, but even on the ground, he kept reaching, trying to grab at their legs. "Watch out for bites and scratches," I shouted. "Do not let him get a hold of you." Between the 2 officers, they managed to pin him, one behind his shoulders, one on his hips. Gwen stepped in with restraints, looping them around his wrists and cinching them tight behind his back. "Drag him to the utility room," she said. "We'll lock him in for now." The officers hauled the man, still struggling, to a side door and shoved him inside. The metal door slammed shut. "He did not feel those hits at all," one officer said, breathing hard. "His arm is probably broken, and he did not even flinch." "We have seen this behavior pattern before tonight," Gwen said. "Focus. Do not let them get close." We kept moving, every shadow now suspect. As we turned left at the nitrogen header, a distant flash lit the sky. A brief, bright flare spike from somewhere down the ship channel. Another plant dealing with its own trouble. "Morgan, status?" I asked. "They are still outside the door," she said, voice shaky. "They stopped pounding for a bit, then started again. It is like they get distracted and then remember we are here. We can hear them breathing through the bottom gap." "We are about 2 minutes out," I said. "Be ready to move when we get there. We will clear as best we can, then head straight for the hydrotreater valves." The corridor narrowed, catwalks and stairs branching off into the tangle of equipment. The heat exchanger yard loomed ahead, a dense collection of large metal shells stacked on steel supports, pipes weaving in all directions. We passed an open grate that looked down onto a lower level walkway. 2 figures moved below, staggering. One bumped into a railing and kept going, leaving a smear of something on the handrail. I tried not to think too hard about it. Morgan's shelter room was just off a junction where several corridors met. As we approached, we heard it. Hands slamming against metal, dull thuds over and over. "Hold up," Gwen whispered. "Lights off." We killed our flashlights, leaving only the dim emergency lighting. 3 infected stood facing the shelter room door, shoulders hitting it repeatedly. Their hands were bloody from the impacts, but they did not seem to notice. They made low sounds, not words, just raw breath and occasional rasps. "They're focused on the door," Ray murmured. "If we get close, they will turn on us." "We need them away from that door so Morgan can get out," I said. "We cannot risk bullets. What about noise? Can we draw them down another corridor?" Gwen nodded. "I have a spare radio," she said. "If I can get it down that hallway and turn up the volume, maybe they follow the sound." She took a small handheld from her belt, turned the volume wheel up, and set it to an open channel that hissed with static. Then she eased down the corridor to a side passage branching off about 20 feet behind the infected. Her movements were slow and deliberate. She edged along the wall, then with a quick motion slid the radio across the floor into the side hallway. It clattered loudly on the grating before coming to rest, hissing loudly. The infected froze for a second. Then, as one, their heads turned toward the new sound. They shifted away from the door, stumbling toward the side passage, drawn by the noise. "Now," Gwen whispered. We moved quickly to the shelter door. I rapped on it with my knuckles. "Morgan, it is Alex. Open." Lock scraped. The door opened a crack, then swung wider. Morgan stood there, helmet askew, eyes wide. 2 other workers stood behind her. "Thank God," she breathed. "I thought you were not coming." "Keep it down," Gwen said. "We have 3 of them just around the corner." Morgan stepped out, looking at my SCBA. "You're going to try to save the hydrotreater," she said. It was not a question. "We need to verify the shutdown valves manually," I said. "You're our guide." She nodded once. "Follow me. We can cut through the exchanger deck and use the maintenance stairs. It will keep us off the open walkways for most of it." We moved as a group. Me, Morgan, Ray, Gwen, her 2 officers, and the 2 workers from the shelter. The workers looked shaky, but determined. The heat exchanger yard was a maze of steel. Large cylindrical exchangers sat on saddles, stacked in rows. Above and between them ran a web of piping and cables. Our path took us along narrow grating walkways, barely a meter wide, valves and flanges at knee height. "Watch your footing," Ray murmured. "These grates are solid, but if you panic and slip, you will hit hard steel." We turned down a side passage that ducked under a set of pipes. As we passed beneath, something dripped onto my helmet. I looked up. A dark, viscous liquid seeped from a flanged connection above. I lifted my gas detector, holding it near the drip. The screen remained green. No explosive gas, oxygen normal, no hydrogen sulfide. "Probably oil or condensate," Ray said, eyeing it. "We will log it later if we live." As we emerged from the exchanger rows onto a slightly more open catwalk, we saw movement ahead. A figure stood at the far end, hunched over something on the ground. "Freeze," Gwen hissed, holding an arm out to stop us. The figure straightened slowly, turning toward us. It was a worker in a reflective vest. At his feet lay another person, not moving. Even from a distance, the posture of the person standing told me everything I needed to know. Shoulders forward, arms slightly bent, head at that odd angle. He took 1 step toward us, then another, then began to run. "Back!" Gwen snapped. "Single file, stay tight." We had no room to spread out. The catwalk was too narrow. Gwen stepped forward, her baton at the ready, positioning herself at the front. Her officers angled in behind her. The infected man closed the distance quickly. Gwen timed it, then swung her baton in a hard arc, catching him in the knee. The joint snapped sideways with a crack. He went down, but his hands clawed for the grating, trying to pull himself forward. One officer brought his baton down on the man's extended arm. The other kicked him squarely in the chest, sliding him backward along the grating. He slid until he hit a low guardrail and stopped, still writhing. "We do not have time to restrain him," Gwen said. "Move, now." We stepped past him, trying not to look down as his hands reached weakly toward our boots. When we reached the end of the catwalk, Morgan pointed to a steel stairway descending toward the hydrotreater's base. "Those valves are on the north side, level 2, she said. "We can get there from this stair tower and the lateral walkway." The stairwell was enclosed on 2 sides by pipe racks, making it feel like descending into a cage. Our boots clanged, echoing. My breathing sounded too loud in my mask. Halfway down, we heard a new sound below, metal banging rapidly. Then a distinct scream, not a mindless sound, a real one. Someone still aware. "Help! Somebody please!" Morgan's face tightened. "That is one of our operators," she whispered. "That sounds like Dan." "We cannot stop long," Gwen said. "We are on a clock." I felt the pull in my chest. This was always the hardest part of safety and emergency work. You cannot save everyone, but you cannot ignore someone calling for help either. "Quick look," I said. "If we can help without getting pinned, we do. If it is a trap or too many infected, we move on." We descended faster. At the base of the stairs, the hydrotreater tower loomed, its cylindrical shell reflecting the floodlights. Piping spidered out from it in all directions. The noise grew louder, alarms, relief valves hissing, pumps whirring unevenly. Around the corner, we found Dan. He was pinned against a valve handwheel by an infected man whose arms encircled his chest. Dan's hard hat was gone. Blood ran down the side of his face. He looked terrified, one hand clawing at the bigger man's forearm. "Get him off me," he shouted, hoarse. The infected attacker's teeth snapped near Dan's shoulder, but Dan twisted, keeping a few inches between them. His legs kicked uselessly. Gwen did not hesitate. She charged, driving her baton into the infected man's ribs with a two-handed thrust. The man staggered but did not let go. One of her officers grabbed the man around the waist and pulled, straining. It took all three of them to tear him off Dan. As soon as they did, the attacker spun toward Gwen, eyes wild. She brought her baton down on his wrist. Ray stepped in then, swinging a heavy, adjustable wrench he had been carrying. It connected with the side of the attacker's head with a sickening thud. The man dropped, finally still. "Restraints," Gwen said, breathing heavily. "Fast. I do not trust that he will stay down." As her officers secured the man's wrists and ankles, I turned to Dan. "Can you walk?" I asked. He nodded shakily, leaning against the pipe rack. "I think so," he said. "He came out of nowhere. He was my relief operator. He'd been acting weird for the last hour, saying his skin felt like it was crawling. Then he just snapped." "Any bites?" I asked, scanning his arms and neck. "I do not think so," he said. "He was trying, but I kept moving. He slammed me into the handwheel a few times though. My ribs are going to be sore." "Stay behind us," I said. "We have to verify the hydrotreater shutdown valves. After that, if we are still alive, we will get you back to a shelter." Morgan led us along a narrow path between vessel supports to the first of the key valves. It was a large manual gate valve, a bright red handwheel at shoulder height. "This is the main feed isolation," she said. "Control says it is closed, but we need to verify." I reached for the handwheel and tried to turn it. It did not budge. "Wheel is hard against the stop," I said. "Tag says closed. That is good." We moved to the next valve, then the next, working our way along the circuit. Each time, we checked the physical position, marked it with a wax pencil, and confirmed against Carla's readings over the radio. "Pressure is still high, but it is not climbing as fast," she said after we had verified the main isolates. "We might be buying ourselves time." "What about the relief valves?" I asked. "Are we at risk of lifting anything besides the flare?" "We are brushing the limits," she said. "Some smaller vents are popping, but the big ones are still in their seats." As we were finishing the last valve, my gas detector beeped. I looked down. The display showed a small but notable reading for benzene, creeping upward. "We have benzene in the air," I said. "It is not lethal levels yet, but it is above what we want to breathe even for short times. Thank God for these masks." "Can we get out now?" one of the shelter workers asked, voice panicked. "Soon," I said. "We need to get back to the control room and decide if we can stabilize the plant or if we need to prepare for a full emergency depressurization." A distant roar grew louder for a moment. The flare stack's flame jumped higher, lighting the night sky in orange. Somewhere, another unit was flaring more gas. "Alex," Carla said in my ear, We're seeing weird fluctuations from other parts of the plant now too. I think we might have instrumentation disturbance, maybe from the power issues, maybe from something else. It is getting harder to trust what we see on the screens." "Understood," I said. "We'll head back. Keep everything as steady as you can." We retraced our route, moving faster now, always scanning. The infected seemed to be roaming more freely. We saw them at distances, moving along catwalks, bumping into railings. They did not move in coordinated groups, but they did seem drawn to sound and movement. As we neared the corridor where Morgan had sheltered, we heard something new. A metal clang from overhead, then a shout. "Look out!" someone yelled. We all looked up. Above us, on an overhead walkway, an infected worker had climbed onto a handrail, reaching for a hanging light fixture. The rail gave way under his weight. He fell, cartwheeling through the air, and smashed into the walkway about 10 feet ahead of us with a terrible impact. He lay still for a second, then began to twitch, trying to push himself up, even with limbs at angles that should not allow it. "We go around," Gwen said immediately. "We are not stepping past that." We cut through a side path, adding a minute or two, but avoiding the thrashing figure. The detour took us into a more cramped area, pipes overhead so low we had to duck. My SCBA cylinder scraped metal. Sparks rained down from somewhere above, where a light fixture had broken. "Is anyone else hearing that buzzing?" one of the shelter workers asked suddenly, voice shaky. "Like, in your head?" I turned to look at him. His face looked pale, his eyes unfocused. "Stop," I said. "What did you just say?" He blinked. I do not know. My skin feels weird, like it is too tight." "Morgan," I said quietly. "Do you know him? Has he been with you long?" She nodded slowly. "He was with me in the shelter. He said he had a headache earlier, but we all did." My heart pounded harder. "Gwen, we need him isolated," I said. "Now." Gwen was already moving. "Sir," she said gently, stepping toward the worker, "we are going to have you sit in this instrument closet for a bit, all right? It is just precaution. You might be getting sick, and we do not want that spreading." He looked confused. "I am fine," he said, but his voice lacked conviction. "I know," she said, "but we have to be extra careful. Come on, it will only be for a little while." There was a small equipment room just off the corridor, filled with calibration gas bottles and spare tools. We guided him inside and handed him a water bottle. "Sit," I said. "If you feel worse, call out. We will check on you as soon as we can." We stepped back into the corridor and closed the door. Gwen locked it. "Mark his location," she said, and one of her officers did, tagging it in his notes. The decision weighed on me, but moving him with us, if he was at the beginning of whatever this illness was, might have been worse. We pushed on and finally emerged near the main corridor back to the control building. The infected we had seen earlier by the shelter door were gone, either drawn away by the radio or wandering elsewhere. The corridor ahead looked clear. We made it back to the control building without further encounters, entering the airlock gratefully. The air inside smelled cleaner, though it was the same mix of recycled conditioning and electronics. I took off my SCBA mask, wiping sweat from my face. Carla met us at the door to the control room. "How bad is it?" I asked. "We are holding the hydrotreater just shy of full emergency relief," she said. "The valves you verified as closed help a lot. Pressure is stabilizing, not great, but not climbing out of control. The flare is busy, but within tolerance for now. The rest of the units are shaky, but not catastrophic." "And the people?" I asked. Her jaw tightened. "We have more reports every 10 minutes of workers and contractors collapsing, then getting up confused, then aggressive. It is not limited to one part of the plant anymore. It is everywhere. Field communication is falling apart." We stepped into the control room. The screens glowed, showing the complex state of the plant. Outside, the flare's glow reflected on the windows. "We are running out of time to make a decision," I said, We have an unknown epidemic inside our plant and probably outside in the city. We have a refinery at risk of losing stable operation. If we keep trying to run normally, we may lose control completely. What are you suggesting? Carla asked. We manually initiate a controlled depressurization, I said. We do it before the automatic systems do it in a chaotic way. We route as much as we can through the flare, minimize unburned releases, and then we start shutting down units in a systematic way. We put the plant in as safe a state as possible, then we leave. Gwen stared at me. You are talking about an intentional partial shutdown, she said. That is going to light up the whole ship channel. Every agency is going to see it. Good, I said. Maybe it will get someone's attention. Right now, the world outside our fence is in crisis too. We cannot assume help is coming in the normal way. Carla bit her lip, thinking. If we do this, we need coordination, she said. We have to open and close the right valves in the right sequence. We have to notify the other plants that we are going to be flaring heavier so they are not surprised. And we have to hope we still have enough people in the field who can respond without trying to attack each other. Do we have another option? I asked. She looked at the alarm board, the flashing lights, the uncontrolled variables. No, she said finally. We do not. We set to work. Carla and her remaining operators began entering commands, slowly bringing down feed to certain units, adjusting recycle flows, opening some lines, closing others. I stood behind them, watching the overall risk picture. Ray monitored the power side, making sure critical systems stayed energized. Gwen coordinated with her security teams, telling them which areas might see increased noise and flare activity, and to steer survivors toward interior shelters away from vents and stacks. Outside, the flare stacks grew taller, brighter. The roar increased, a constant low thunder that vibrated the glass. The sky above the ship channel glowed orange, reflecting off the low clouds. On one camera feed, we saw several infected workers stop in their tracks, looking toward the flare. They seemed drawn to it, walking slowly in that direction. The noise, the light, the vibration, it was like a beacon to them. If they cluster near the flare base, that might actually be good for the rest of the plant, Ray muttered. Keep them away from critical equipment. Unless something fails at the flare base, I said. Then we have a problem we do not even have words for. Minutes turned into a tense blur as the plant shifted toward our new state. Some units hummed down, others cycled, valves repositioned, pressure graphs began to flatten. For a moment, I dared to feel a small flicker of hope. We might pull this off. We might get this place into a somewhat safe condition before everything completely fell apart. Then the building shook. It was a deep, rolling vibration that rattled light fixtures and made dust drift from the ceiling vents. Alarms jumped. The flare roar hiccuped, then roared louder. What was that? Carla shouted. One of the operators pointed at a screen. Tank farm, he said. We just lost a rail car, pressure spike, then a dip. Camera feed is out. Pull another camera, I said. On a different monitor, a view from a higher mast camera came up. It looked out over the rail loading area near the tank facade. Several rows of tank cars sat on sidings. At the far end, one was on its side, wheels in the air, a long gash in its shell. A plume of vapor rose from it, catching the light. That rail car overpressurized and blew off its fittings, Ray said. If that cloud reaches an ignition source, as if cued by his words, a flicker appeared at the edge of the cloud, then a flash. A fireball blossomed, then constrained itself with a rolling whoosh. Flames shot upward in a column, then subsided into a lower, intense burning. The shockwave from the initial ignition must have been what we felt. That is in the open, Carla said. Away from most major units. It looks like it's burning itself off rather than detonating the whole yard. I will take that small mercy, Gwen said. On the camera, I noticed something else. Figures near the burning railcar, silhouettes moving around the fire. Some turned their heads toward the flame, stepping closer. One walked directly into the heat shimmer, stumbling, then dropped out of frame. They are drawn to it, I said quietly. The noise, the light, they do not understand the danger. Alex, Morgan said suddenly, stepping up beside me. Look here. She pointed at another screen, one showing a top-down schematic of the plant's stormwater drainage system, overlaid with live flow data. We are seeing increased flow from sectors that should not have that much water movement, she said. It is not raining. We did not have a firewater demand big enough to explain this. Something is moving through our drains. I followed the patterns. Several branches showed spikes in flow, all converging toward the main canal that ran under part of the plant and then out toward the ship channel. Are those grates secure? I asked. Could people get into those drains? We have had issues with trespassers before in other parts of the ship channel, Gwen said. People looking for scrap or shortcuts. But most of our access grates are bolted. Most, I repeated. Not all. A horrible thought formed. If infected people fell or climbed into the drains, they could move unseen beneath the plant, popping up wherever there were openings, sumps, manholes, culverts. We will worry about that in a bit, I said. First priority is still getting this plant as safe as we can. Then we plan an exit route that does not take us right over those canals. I have an idea for that, Gwen said slowly. Our stormwater canal continues under the plant and pops out near the rail yard. There is a large culvert opening there. If we go the other way, head upstream in that canal, we can maybe reach a maintenance crossover that comes up near the fence line. It is tight, wet, and nasty, but it gets us out near the marsh, away from most units. We would be walking through the same canal system that might already have infected people in it, I said. True, she said. But above ground, we are guaranteed to run into them now. Underground, we at least have some cover and predictability, and we will not be walking under live process equipment for most of it. In other words, we are choosing between bad and worse, I said. Welcome to night shift, she replied. We finished the manual steps for the controlled depressurization. Systems settled into a lower energy state. The flare roared steadily, but the pressure graphs that had been climbing now held steady or declined. All right, Carla said finally, hitting a few final keys. We are as stable as we are going to get under these conditions. I can maintain this from here with 1 or 2 operators. The rest of you should think about getting out. You should come with us, I said. She shook her head. If we all walk away, the plant drifts. If something unexpected happens, there will be nobody to take action. I am not doing that. This place is my responsibility. I will stay as long as I can. Carla, I began. It is not a debate, she said. I will patch into whatever outside channels I can and keep this place from turning into a crater. You do your job. Get whoever you can out alive. I looked at her, then at the screens. The idea of leaving her here twisted in my chest, but she was right. Someone had to mind the systems, at least for a while. All right, I said quietly. We will come back if we can. If it gets too bad, you head to the shelters and wait this out. She gave a small, humorless smile. We will see which one of us gets the better deal. We gathered at the hallway just outside the control room. Gwen rolled out a laminated diagram of the stormwater system on a table, spreading it flat. Here, she said, pointing. We are here now. The main canal runs under this section. There is an access shaft near the mechanical workshop. We can get down there using a ladder. From there, we follow this branch upstream. It is about 600 yards to maintenance crossover. That crossover climbs up to a security outbuilding near the perimeter fence. If it is still intact, we can reach the outside world there. What about the infected in the drains? Ray asked. Best thing we can do is move quickly, quietly, and avoid any side branches that are flooded, she said. If we encounter anyone down there, it will be in tight quarters. We use poles, tools, anything that lets us keep distance. No heroics. If someone gets grabbed, we do what we can, but we do not all die in a pile. I nodded. We also need to consider air quality in the canals, I said. We have had small leaks into that system before. Even if it is mostly water, There could be volatile material. We keep the SCBA on as long as we have air, Ray said. We can switch between sets if we have spares, but it is going to be tight. Morgan stepped forward. What about the workers in other shelters? She asked. We cannot just leave them. I know, I said. But getting to all of them is impossible right now. The plant is huge. We're short on time, and the infection is spreading too fast. If we can get out and connect with outside resources, we may be able to organize a more systematic rescue later. Right now, we have to move with the people we have. It felt like betrayal to say it, but it was the ugly truth. The group that would attempt the escape via the canals included me, Gwen, Ray, Morgan, Dan, one of the control room interns, and one of Gwen's officers. The rest of the security team would stay to protect the control room and shelters as long as they could. We loaded up with what we could carry: flashlights, extra batteries, a handful of radios, some energy bars and bottled water from the break room, a first aid kit, a set of hand tools. Weapons were improvised: batons, wrenches, a metal pipe. No guns. The mechanical workshop was a few hundred yards from the control building, near a cluster of shops and storage sheds. The walk there was one of the tensest of my life. The plant felt altered now. Infected individuals moved intermittently through the walkways, appearing at odd angles. Some leaned against railings, heads hanging, breathing heavily. Others wandered, stopping suddenly, then starting again. Sometimes their heads snapped in our direction, but if we stayed quiet and out of their direct line of sight, they did not always react. We passed one sitting on the floor, back against a column, fingers raw where they had scraped at the concrete. He stared at nothing, chest heaving. As we stepped past, his eyes flicked to us, but he did not move. I did not know if that made me feel better or worse. At the workshop, we found the access shaft Gwen had mentioned. It was a square concrete opening in the floor, about 3 feet on a side, covered by a heavy steel grate. A yellow caution sign warned about confined space hazards. Authorized entry by permit only, Ray read aloud. We are definitely not filling out the paperwork for this one. We pried the grate up together, muscles straining. Beneath, a metal ladder descended into darkness. The air that drifted up smelled damp and faintly chemical. My gas detector read normal oxygen, 0 explosive gas, 0 hydrogen sulfide for the moment. Ladies and gentlemen, Gwen said wryly, our glamorous exit route. I will go first, I said. Ray, you come behind me with a second gas detector. Gwen, you bring up the rear. Keep your radios low. We do not want to attract attention through any open drains near the surface. I swung my legs over the edge, grasped the ladder, and started down. The metal rungs were slick with condensation. My gloves squeaked slightly. The beam of my flashlight cut through the dim, illuminating rough concrete walls. At the bottom, the ladder ended in a narrow walkway alongside the canal itself. The water flowed slowly, knee-deep in places, shimmering under my light. The canal was about 6 feet wide, its ceiling low enough that taller members of the group would have to hunch. As everyone reached the bottom and clustered in the narrow space, I checked my detector again. Still normal. We began walking, single file, along the walkway. In some spots, the walkway was only a foot wide, forcing us to step carefully, backs against the wall, toes close to the edge of the water. In others, there was no walkway at all, just the canal. We had to step into the water and wade. The sound of the plant above came down as a muffled rumble. Drips echoed from the ceiling. Our flashlights carved moving cones of light in the darkness. This is the stuff nightmares are made of, Dan muttered behind me. Keep your mind on your footing, I said, one step at a time. We reached the first junction, a side tunnel branching off to the right. The main canal continued straight. On my diagram, that side branch led toward the hydrotreater sector. I shone my light into it. The water there was deeper, the air hazier. Stay on the main line, I said. We do not need to visit that part of the plant again. We continued, turning occasionally according to Gwen's directions. Left at the first major junction, then straight, then a slight right where the ceiling dropped lower. My gas detector beeped quietly once, then returned to normal, a small blip in volatile organics, probably stirred up sediment. "How much farther?" Morgan asked softly. "About halfway," Gwen replied from the back. "Maybe a little more. You are doing fine." At the next bend, we heard a sound ahead. It was a splash, then another, then a rhythmic sloshing. Someone, or something, was moving in the water. I held up a hand. We stopped. I listened. The sound came closer. "Lights down," I whispered. We lowered our flashlights, pointing them at the ground or covering them with our hands. Out of the darkness ahead, a shape emerged. A person, waist deep in the water, staggering along the canal. Their head hung low, arms dragging. As they came closer, we could see the ragged edges of a torn reflective vest. They did not see us at first, just moved forward, one uneven step after another. When they were about 10 feet away, they stopped, their heads slowly lifted. Even in the dim, I could see the eyes. We held completely still. The infected person stood there, water lapping around their legs, listening. Then, without warning, they turned toward a side tunnel and shuffled away, splashing. The sound faded. We stayed frozen for another long 5 count. Then I let out the breath I had been holding. "That was too close," the control room intern whispered. "Welcome to the new normal," Ray said quietly. We resumed moving, our senses now keyed to every small sound. Eventually, the canal began to slope upward slightly. The water grew shallower, then transitioned back into a mostly dry concrete floor with a trickle of water down the middle. My gas detector beeped again, this time for oxygen. It dipped to 19%, then climbed back up. "We have some low spots with oxygen displacement," I said. "Keep your masks sealed. Do not linger in depressions." The maintenance crossover access was a simple steel ladder up to a hatch. We found it after what felt like an hour, but was probably 20 or 30 minutes of careful walking. I climbed first, pushing gently at the hatch. It resisted. "Locked," I whispered down. "Try again," Gwen said. "Some of these just stick." I braced my shoulders under it and pushed harder. The hatch shifted with a scraping sound, then popped up a few inches. A faint breeze drifted in, smelling like grass and oil. I lifted the hatch enough to peek. We were in the shadow of a small cinderblock building near the perimeter fence. Beyond, I could see the glow of the flare stacks and the reflection on the ship channel. The sky was a strange mix of orange and black. I listened. No immediate sounds of nearby movement. "Clear for now," I said, and climbed the rest of the way out, kneeling on the gravel. I scanned the area with my flashlight on low, then motioned for the others. One by one, they emerged from the hatch, blinking in the open air. We moved as a group toward the cinderblock building. It was one of the security outposts used for perimeter checks. The door was slightly ajar. Inside, the small room was empty. A desk, a chair, a radio charger, a half-finished cup of coffee now cold. A monitor that normally showed perimeter camera feeds was dark, probably cut by the earlier power issues. "The fence line is just beyond this berm," Gwen said, pointing. "There is a gate we can open manually if we cut the chain." Ray grabbed a pair of bolt cutters from a rack. We approached the fence, following it until we reached the gate. The chain was looped through the bars, padlocked. He cut it with 2 strong squeezes. The chain fell. We pushed the gate open, its hinges squealing. Beyond, the ground dropped slightly toward a marshy area, then rose again toward a service road that skirted the outer boundary of the industrial corridor. Farther, the faint glow of streetlights from a residential area. We stepped through, leaving the refinery property for the first time since the night began. For a moment, I let myself feel a tiny bit of relief. We had done it. We had stabilized the plant as best we could, navigated the tunnels, and made it outside the direct zone of industrial hazards. Then we heard the sirens. Multiple sirens, distant but all around, not just plant alarms, city emergency vehicles. The sky above the ship channel glowed, but now I could see other glows too, scattered in the distance. Small fires, maybe large ones. Smoke drifted. From somewhere along the service road, a car sped past, swerving, then fishtailing, then slamming into a ditch. The driver's door flew open. A person stumbled out, fell to their hands and knees, then pushed up and turned toward us. Even at a distance, I saw the posture, the movement. The infection was not confined to the refinery. It was everywhere. We made it out of the plant, Dan said quietly, voice hollow. But we did not escape the world. We were never going to, I said. But we have knowledge other people do not. We know how fast this spreads in a closed system. We know what happens when systems fail. We can use that. Morgan looked at me. You mean we are going to keep doing safety? She asked. Out here? That is all survival is, I said. Hazard, control, mitigation. We have a head start. We know how to see risk before most people do. Gwen adjusted the strap on her vest. Then let us use it, she said. There are neighborhoods down that road that have no idea a refinery almost went up in their backyard tonight. There are families who do not know what is coming toward them from the city. They need to know where not to go, which parts of the ship channel are about to become no-go zones, where there might still be safe pockets. And maybe, Ray added, we can find out where this started, because this came on too fast to be random. I remembered the contractor earlier, the buzzing in his head, the way his symptoms began before any known exposure. I thought about the mention of biomonitoring contracts we had with outside labs to test our effluent and air samples. Companies that played with things we did not always fully understand. We have contacts at the chemical testing lab we use, I said slowly, the one that does our biomonitoring and environmental panels. If anyone has seen unusual markers before tonight, it would be them. The place out near Baytown? Morgan asked. I nodded. If this started upstream, they may have been the first to see it. And if they saw it and did not stop it, we ask them, Gwen said. And if they do not like the questions, we push harder. We stood there for a long moment, 7 figures on the edge of an industrial corridor that had almost become a disaster bigger than anyone could have imagined, while a different kind of disaster rolled across the city. Behind us, the refinery burned off its excess gas in controlled fury. The flare stack a pillar of fire against the sky. It looked stable for now. We had given it that. Ahead of us, the world was unstable in ways no process diagram could capture. I took a deep breath, adjusted the straps of my SCBA, and stepped forward onto the service road. My name is Alex Rivera, I thought. I am a safety technician. Tonight, I helped keep one refinery from blowing itself apart, while an epidemic turned people into something else. Tomorrow, I do not know what I will be. All I know is that the rules have changed, the hazards have multiplied, and we have a responsibility to stay alive long enough to make sure someone learns from what we saw in that plant. We started walking toward the distant lights, toward the sirens, toward whatever came next. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like and subscribe. Your support keeps these creepypastas coming. Until next time, stay alert, stay safe, and never ignore the feeling that something is watching.